And in today's Business Matters, President Xi Jinping held a rare meeting on Monday with some of the biggest names in China's technology sector, urging them to be confident in China's market and show their talent. So it's a sharp turn around from an intense clampdown on private business 4 years ago. Jack Ma was at today's meeting in 2020. He disappeared after criticizing the Chinese Communist Party on economic and social issues. He didn't reappear until 3 years later. On today's meeting, one analyst said the Chinese regime now has no choice but to support Chinese tech companies if it wants to compete with the United States. U.S. tariffs threaten more pressure on the world's second largest economy. It's already reeling from weak domestic consumption and a destabilizing debt crisis in the property sector. Meanwhile, the Ford F-150 is no longer America's #1 vehicle. Data from JATO Dynamics found Toyota's RAV4 dethroned the F-150. The pickup truck was in the top spot for 4 decades. Researchers say the RAV4's hybrid powertrain is a big reason for its rise in popularity. Honda CR-V sales also rose, while Tesla Model Y sales decreased in 2024. And the Agriculture Department has issued a conditional license to a company to produce a bird flu vaccine for chickens. The vaccine maker is Zoetis. A company spokesperson says its scientists began updating its existing avian flu vaccine several years ago. And last Friday, the government gave the company a conditional license. The company previously developed vaccines for avian flu to protect California condors in 2023. Other countries already vaccinate their birds against the virus, but the United States has taken a different approach and has tried to eradicate avian flu instead. That strategy may be shifting, however. Workers have killed more than 150 million birds infected or exposed to the virus since the latest outbreak in 2022. And that has led to higher prices for eggs and an egg shortage as well around the country. Critics say a vaccine is not the answer. They say it might be difficult to detect the virus in vaccinated birds, and other countries may not import birds that are vaccinated. A federal agency recently approved the construction of a deep water port off the coast of Texas, according to the Department of Transportation. It will be capable of shipping up to 2 million barrels of crude oil per day to international markets. On this topic, earlier I spoke to Ray Trevino, Vice President of Operations at Petco Country operating in Texas. Thanks for coming on today, Ray. To start off here, can you just give us a brief overview and understanding of what this is and the significance?
Yeah, so what it is basically right now we're looking at ways to actually export more oil and gas across not only America, but more importantly to our allies across the world, which then allows them the freedom to actually have an abundant, affordable, and reliable energy for themselves as well.
And how does this project align with the broader U.S. energy policy under Trump?
Yes, as we hear the words drill, baby, drill, I like to say that's like everybody's favorite song. Everybody has that one song that gets them going, they're rocking and rolling. And so when we hear drill, baby, drill in the oil and gas industry, we just get amped. And what this really probably means under the Trump administration is going to be build, baby, build. And the infrastructure that we need is so important to only continue to maintain affordable and reliable energy through oil and natural gas. So being able to do this port is going to be so important to just continuing to expand our energy independence and our energy dominance across the world.
So can you give us a little bit more detail on that point, specifically how this will affect the U.S. in terms of energy?
Yes, right now, in terms of energy, we produce 14 million barrels of oil a day. We are the #1 producer of oil and gas in the world right now. And as we continue to do that, we need to be sure to sell to other countries and make sure that places like OPEC stay below us if it's possible, because right now they're only producing about 9 million barrels. And if we continue to produce, we're going to need to be able to export that oil and, more importantly, that natural gas. Because I think, as I've said here on this show before, is that Texas alone is the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. And we need to get that across the world to our allies to help them provide affordable and reliable energy to themselves also.
And just piggybacking off of your point that you just mentioned just now, what are the advantages of exporting U.S. crude oil through the Texas Gulf Link port?
Well, as you know, the Texas Gulf is definitely primed and ready for any oil and gas. I know Corpus Christi is already building a port that's going to be able to allow these super tankers in and out of their port with the liquid natural gas. And we're going to be able to then basically ship that across the world and get that to our allies.
And will increased exports change global oil prices or perhaps influence in terms of OPEC?
You know, I would like to think that it's going to influence in terms of OPEC. I'm always going to be a firm believer, and this is just me, myself, and I, that, you know, as Texas goes, the world goes, and that OPEC is always watching what Texas oil and gas is doing. However, the crude truth is that the only way we truly tip the needle and fight OPEC is through the offshore drilling that President Trump has opened up. So the more offshore drilling we can in the Gulf of America, then that means the more oil and natural gas we're going to be able to spread across the world.
So do you think this will move the needle at all when it comes to domestic crude oil prices?
You know, the president election itself really moved the needle, and it showed with the markets where it believed oil and gas was going to be. And right now we're still at that about $70 to $75 oil range price in oil. And I do believe that we're going to stay there for several more months as we only continue to ramp up what production we do have. Because keep in mind, this Gulf Link port and other places, as we continue to build the infrastructure to export this oil and natural gas, it's going to take time, and then we'll see the price move at the price of oil and natural gas down the road.
I mean, the bottom line is it can't make inflation worse, right? It can only make it better.
I would like to think so. That's economics 101. We're going to be adding more jobs to the economy. We're going to be stimulating the economy by that money then going back into these communities. And so, yes, I don't see that in any form really affecting inflation other than in a good thing and bringing it down. Because if you keep in mind, once the Biden administration was at record high inflation, he really shut his mouth on the oil and gas industry. Because if we really want to continue to fight inflation, it's drill, baby, drill, and make sure that all those American oil and gas workers are out there working and providing oil and natural gas, and more importantly, energy to every American, because energy does not discriminate between anybody across the country.
Let me just quickly ask you this as well: the environmental impact. Do you see any environmental groups potentially raising concerns here?
Yes. As much as I hate to say it, excuse me there, the EPA is always going to do its thing. However, with Lee Zeldin leading the charge, we're very excited that for once, hopefully, the EPA will not be used against the oil and gas industry. It has been weaponized. And with Lee Zeldin in charge, I do believe that we're going to be able to get rid of a lot of red tape and those regulations. But also keep in mind, when I say that to all the individuals out there, the United States of America is still the cleanest producing oil and gas country in the world. We still have the strictest regulations, and we need to follow those, okay? The EPA has done great things. We don't talk about acid rain in the Northwest anymore, and we don't hear about the hole in the ozone anymore. So America does what it needs to do. The rest of the world needs to follow suit and follow the same rules and regulations that America does today.
Okay, final question. Any risks of overcapacity?
At this time, I think we can only continue to drill, baby, drill, and more importantly, produce. Because again, with us at 14 million barrels of oil being produced today, America alone still uses an estimated 21 million barrels of oil a day. So at this point, there is no real, knock on wood, need for overcapacity. But also keep in mind, Don, that we do need to fill up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So there's a need for oil and gas every day here in America for several years to come.
All right, Ray, well said. Great speaking to you today. I hope you come on again soon.
Thank you guys so much.
And industry insiders say global aerospace firms are turning to India amid a supply chain crisis in the West. Airbus, Collins Aerospace, and Rolls-Royce are expanding parts sourcing from India. It's driving growth in the country's emerging aerospace sector and as well pushing local firms to elevate their game. Now, since the pandemic, plane and engine manufacturers in the West have been constrained by strikes, production caps as well, and parts and labor shortages. India is the world's third largest domestic aviation market by seats, among the fastest growing. That's also driving demand for maintenance services and parts. Meanwhile, Microsoft plans to invest an additional $700 million in Poland. It's to improve Polish cybersecurity in cooperation with the country's armed forces. Microsoft's company's president said on Monday without elaborating. In a joint press conference with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, Microsoft President Smith said the investment would be for a second phase of the already completed $1 billion Polish data center project announced in 2020. The data center was opened in 2023. It provides cloud services to businesses and government institutions. Workers at an Amazon warehouse in Garner, North Carolina, near Raleigh, voted against the chance to join a union. The vote results were revealed on Saturday. Only 1 in 4 who cast ballots wanted to form a union. More than 3,200 people voted out of 4,700 eligible voters. Saturday's result is just the latest setback for efforts to unionize Amazon workers. In 2022, workers at a Staten Island, New York warehouse voted to join the Amazon Labor Union, which is the company's first union. But the company has fought back attempts to unionize at 3 other warehouses in Alabama, upstate New York, and another facility on Staten Island. Now, union supporters were seeking a $30 an hour salary for employees in Garner. Amazon workers typically start at $18.50 an hour, and top wage earners receive nearly $24 an hour. After corn and soy prices sank to 4-year lows in 2024, U.S. farmers are struggling to turn a profit. Many are instead turning to the $4.5 billion agricultural tourism industry, offering activities and overnight stays as consumer demand grows for rural experiences and farm income declines. Here's more.
Welcome to Pink River Ranch. The small farm in Wisconsin is attracting people from nearby big cities, but not to work, to relax. The draw? This vintage Airstream trailer that ranch owner Britt Thompson has turned into an Airbnb.
We raise livestock and do farm dinners and are really focused on bringing people out and having them a connection to agriculture.
Thompson is just one of many farmers turning to agricultural tourism as demand for rural experiences grows and farm income declines. Their crops are used to make food, feed livestock, and produce vegetable oils. But turning a profit is becoming ever more challenging in an increasingly unstable agricultural economy. Corn and soy prices sank to 4-year lows last year. Steady revenue from her short-term rental has helped Thompson endure this volatile commodities market.
I don't want to be out there working my butt off for $5 an hour when I can make $100 an hour cleaning the Airstream for an hour.
Farmers have long offered pumpkin patches, hay rides, and corn mazes to lure customers. But aided by platforms like Airbnb and camping websites like Harvest Hosts and The Dirt, agritourism has boomed as urbanites look to spend time in the countryside.
Consumers are looking for more authentic experiences for the most part.
Ryan Pesch is an agricultural business extension educator at the University of Minnesota.
It's one of those strange things about modern lifestyles. We are uber connected via our phones and devices, yet at the same time, we can feel very lonely and feel very disconnected from the land, from where our food comes from. Gathering with half a dozen people on farm, eating food that came from those fields. That can be a magical experience. And that's really what a lot of agritourism producers are looking to conjure up for folks.
The trend has picked up since 2020, when people were initially drawn by social distancing. The number of U.S. farm stays on these platforms increased by 77% in the last 5 years, says data firm AirDNA. That's roughly twice the increase in overall listings. Nationally, about 7% of farms offer tourism opportunities, according to research from the University of Vermont. And many have boosted their revenue by $25,000 to $100,000 a year. Some can make upwards of $1 million. The added income is a welcome boon. Low crop prices, high interest rates, and steep costs for seeds, fertilizer, and labor are all adding pressure, farmers and industry experts say. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says farm income has dropped 23% from 2022. That's one of the biggest declines in history. And the American Farm Bureau says the agricultural economy is in a recession.
They tax us, we tax them.
This year could also bring further financial pain if U.S. President Donald Trump's trade wars with Canada, Mexico, and China are prolonged.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to create stability.
Catherine Topol runs Smoky Mountain Mangalitsa, a hog farm in North Carolina that sells its pigs to restaurants. It started hosting campers as COVID struck and eateries closed.
1 minute, you feel like you have too many, and the next minute you don't have enough for your market. I mean, it really is a very bizarre and uncertain world with livestock anyway. But the camping has certainly contributed to the stability for them and for us and for keeping the farm a farm.
Not all farms nor farmers are suited to hosting paying guests overnight, and navigating costly government regulations can be a headache. But for those able to jump the hurdles, diversifying their income can help families maintain ownership of their farms. Some said they can pay off debt and provide jobs for younger generations, who often prefer building websites and managing rentals over working the land. Helping others connect with nature while raising children in a rural setting also provides motivation.
We still want to enjoy the lifestyle, we still want to do agriculture, but we're less willing to make sacrifices to do it than we used to be.
Now for something sweet, donut chain Krispy Kreme is now partnering with the streaming platform Hulu starting on Monday. The donut company is offering a collection of donuts-inspired tastes of the classic cinema. We're talking about a caramel popcorn donut, which has a crunch to it, by the way, like real popcorn. Besides that, there's also a blueberry slush-flavored donut, and as well a cookie dough superstar donut, and one called the candy double feature, which is layered in chocolate and small pieces of candy, super sweet sounding. Part of the promotion includes a chance to win a 1-year subscription to Hulu. And the Food and Drug Administration has set the recall of nearly 2.5 million cases of MadeGood brand granola bars as a Class 2 recall. The Chicago-based company Riverside Natural Foods Incorporated is voluntarily recalling the products due to possible metal contamination. The company said the metal could be from a small flat brush bristle used in the manufacturing process. The FDA's rating means the product could cause temporary or medically reversible health consequences. MadeGood says it will refund any products on the recall list. For more information, you can go to the company's website or fda.gov. DeepSeek has temporarily paused downloads of its chatbot apps in South Korea. Officials said today that the Chinese artificial intelligence startup will work with local authorities to address privacy concerns. Authorities in South Korea said the apps were removed from the local versions of Apple's App Store and Google Play Store over the weekend. The action does not affect users who already downloaded DeepSeek on their phones or use it on personal computers. At least one South Korean official urged users to delete DeepSeek from their devices or avoid entering personal information until the issues are resolved. Many South Korean government agencies and companies have either blocked DeepSeek from their networks or prohibited employees from using the app for work. Creamer, a staple in many people's daily coffee and tea routine. It's a $5 billion industry that continues to grow year after year, especially with companies catering to younger audiences by introducing creamers based on movies and TV shows. NTD Shar Marshall has more.
Whether it's with coffee or tea, creamer is something many of the older generations can't do without. And now companies like Nestle-owned Coffee Mate and Danone-owned International Delight, the top two brands in the creamer category, are putting out new flavors to hit the Instagram and TikTok crowds of Gen Z. Growth in the refrigerated coffee creamer category has jumped about 14%. So what's been happening in the creamer industry? Some expansion has been due to health-conscious consumers who want to avoid sugar and calories. Companies are also adding fiber, probiotics, and vitamins to creamers. Natural alternatives like oat cream are gaining popularity due to their richness and ability to mimic the frothiness offered by dairy milk. To keep up with the increased demand for creamer, Nestle recently opened a $675 million factory in Arizona specifically for creamer production. Nestle's creamer lineup has exploded with new flavors from Starbucks, Natural Bliss, and of course its flagship Coffee Mate brand. International Delight has leaned hard into a novelty category for growth, especially with creamers built around popular TV shows and movies, including some nostalgic titles. This approach began a few years ago when International Delight put the 2003 film Elf a name on a line of sweet creamer flavors sold during the holidays, and more recently flavors based on the Netflix dating show Love is Blind. Coffee Mate's new White Lotus creamers are an example of corporate synergy. Consumers use the creamer in the morning and it reminds them to watch the show at night. From media to holidays, the creamer industry knows they have a popular product, and by adding new varieties, they're gaining even more customers. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And the CEO of Israel's Teva Pharmaceutical Industries is urging the Trump administration to speed up generic drug approvals and exempt some drugs from funding freezes. The president paused funds as part of a wave of executive orders upon his return to the Oval Office. Chief Executive Richard Francis also downplayed the impact of Trump's tariffs on the company. The CEO added that Teva did not receive many supplies from China and was not concerned about shortages. Teva last month reported a slightly larger than expected rise in fourth quarter profits. Francis said the company's trio of branded drugs to treat migraines, Huntington's disease, and schizophrenia would drive growth. He added that a robust pipeline of drugs will be launched in the next couple of years. Russian state media reported that a Russian court fined Google almost $42,000 for content on YouTube. It included videos instructing Russian soldiers how to surrender. Russia has for several years ordered foreign technology platforms to remove content it deems illegal, such as what it calls fakes about the war in Ukraine, has been issuing small but persistent fines when it sees failures to comply. Critics accuse Russian authorities of disrupting YouTube's download speeds to prevent Russians from viewing content critical of President Vladimir Putin and the Russian government. Russia denies that, saying the issues are caused by Google's own failure to upgrade equipment. Gold legend Tiger Woods addressed issues in golf between the U.S.-based PGA Tour and Saudi-backed rival LIV Golf. He said yesterday that talks toward a deal are moving in the right direction. LIV Golf held its inaugural event in 2022 and has since lured a number of golf's biggest names away from the PGA Tour. Woods told CBS the talks are in a very positive place when he gave the comments during the Genesis Open. Woods added that top PGA Tour officials had a productive meeting with President Trump this month, and they asked him to get involved in talks. LIV Golf has played at courses owned by Trump since it began and will do so again this year. Japanese automaker Nissan eyes moving production out of Mexico because of President Trump's tariffs. Here's more.
Nissan CEO Makoto Uchida says he may move production out of Mexico because of President Trump's tariff threats. Trump threatened 25% tariffs on Mexico earlier this year. That production would likely go to the U.S., where the cars would be safe from tariffs.
What you will see is more production here, which means more jobs, which means you have more cash to spend on a new car, which helps the economy.
Car expert Lauren Fix says the tariffs are a tool for bringing production into the U.S. She says otherwise, car makers would rather build elsewhere.
If you build a car in Mexico, they're paying substantially less than that they do here. For example, Lincoln's building product currently in China because it's less expensive.
Nissan's CEO says it's exporting a large volume to U.S., so if there's a high tariff, this would have huge implications on our business. Something similar happened in 1981 during the Reagan administration.
Reagan and his people were able to induce the Japanese to sign something euphemistically called a voluntary export restraint. That is not a tariff, that is a quota, but it has the same economic effect.
Economic historian Robert Wright says the voluntary export restraint required Japanese car makers to build in the U.S. Toyota, Mazda, Nissan, and Honda all opened plants. America's car industry also gained market share. But Wright says he thinks the restraints were negative overall.
The prices of automobiles were higher due to the export restraints, and that higher price more than offset any of the employment gains.
Wright says tariffs are good in two cases: when they cause other countries to lower their tariffs and when an entire country is the sole buyer of a product, a situation that probably doesn't exist.
And markets today closed because of President's Day, so there's no trading. With that, everything we have for you today on Business Matters.